Hello, my name is Ash Noble, a Chief Architect for DevSecOps at Honeywell Connected Enterprise. Today I'll be telling you about our transformation journey to a DevOps culture. Honeywell Connected Enterprise is a relatively new organisation created to dominate the industrial IoT market, bringing together the common parts of several diverse verticals such as connected aero, connected industrial, connected building, connected cyber, and several other divisions. Honeywell is a large company. We have around 10,000 software developers. Of those, about 1,000 are in the connected enterprise. The mission that we were given, relatively simple, is to bring DevOps to the organisation. We were fortunate enough that when we started this 2.5–3 years ago, that a book called Accelerate was released. This really gave us a blueprint for how we could start the transformation to the DevOps culture. There were already several approaches in play for doing agile transformation in the company. So we focused on the continuous delivery behavior and the enablers for that, such as test automation, shift left on security, continuous integration, etc. In order to map out where we needed to go, we needed to understand what the problem was. So we researched a section of the pipelines that we had, 414, and found that we had 649 combinations of tools and processes within those 414 pipelines. We had some monoliths which had the same job being taken up by several tools in the same pipeline. We found that we had a lot of commonality, but also a lot of variance. For example, our version control tools, most teams were using Bitbucket. 3/4 of our teams were using Bamboo. Under half our teams were using our standard deploy tool, which was Octopus Deploy. We also found that even though some teams were using the approved tool, they were using their own instances of it. They'd stood it up for some reason of their own. So we understood where the problem was in terms of tools. We also wanted to understand what the teams were facing with their capabilities. So we got all of the teams to fill in a survey around their pipelines, measuring 13 different capabilities, roughly aligned to the capabilities of continuous delivery. On the left-hand side is approximately the build phases, and on the right-hand side is approximately the deployment phases and full automation of those capabilities. In the middle is around automated testing, some of the security. So you can see that we had some areas we were doing really well. We had a lot of good automation, some great capabilities. Other areas we weren't doing very well at all. And in some cases we had pockets of excellence, but they weren't spread out across the products. What we wanted to do was make sure that when someone created a new pipeline and released a product, that they were green across the board. All the measures were green straight away without having to do any extra work. In order to achieve this, we came up with our 3 pillars plan: automation, enablement, and measurement. We wanted to automate all the tools and processes to remove manual steps for CICD pipeline creation and execution. We wanted to measure the key indicators to identify the areas of improvement for the development teams and the coaches. And we wanted to guide the establishment of a DevOps culture aided by the automation, informed by the measurements. So these 3 pillars all interact with each other. On the automation plan, we created a tool called Automate, an imaginative name. It was a self-service CICD pipeline portal. In general, when you look at a pipeline at a high enough level, most teams or most people's pipelines look relatively similar. Our pipeline, we usually use an Atlassian stack, and we deploy to mostly Azure endpoints in the cloud. We also deploy to on-premise. We have a number of tools listed here, but these are just some of the major tools. We have hundreds of tools used amongst the pipelines for different languages. So this was the standard pipeline that we wanted to create. In order to do that, we created the Automate tool. The Automate tool is used by a developer to create a CI/CD pipeline. That CI/CD pipeline uses a build farm that we supplied, which deploys to, in general, the application hosting environment, which for us is Kubernetes. You could also deploy to other Azure or on-prem environments as well. And we use the DevOps dashboards to visualize the CICD pipelines and help teams improve and understand their current performance. The build farm and the application hosting was a real time saver for teams, because when they used to build pipelines themselves, they would have to create their own build agent that would then do the builds for them, and they'd usually only create one of those. And then they would also have to figure out how to deploy into a cloud environment by themselves. So we provided those for them, which dramatically reduced the amount of effort they needed to spend. So we know we needed to create pipelines. When we analysed all the different pipelines, we found that we had several categories of pipelines that were being put together to form an application. In general, we found an application was made up of a web UI, which was talking to some sort of web API, which had some sort of back-end processes, which were processing messages or events that were flowing through the system. The UI had some sort of widgets that they would share amongst themselves. We also had back-end libraries that would share code amongst the different back-end services. So this is how we would generally build an application. So if we were creating pipelines, we wanted to be able to create a pipeline for each one of these categories or templates. So what would we considering as part of a template? Our templates come with sample code. If it's a to-do application, our templates all come with sample code, and it's always the same example in the sample code.